This is Hunter Muse.
And this is Chris Snipes, and you are listening
to The Melt.
Fantastic. Well, the last time that we had you on, you were just starting to put out videos with sort of the monopoly piece strategy about going about all of this. Have you updated any of that? Are you branching out from that? Are things still the same? Do you have updates? Lay it on us.
Can you remind me the month and year we had a show?
That's a great question. I would have to go to my website real quick if you can just hold on.
Or even just a ballpark.
While he's doing that, I do want to mention that I saw Dr. Andrew Kaufman do an Instagram, I don't know if it was a reel or a live, where he was telling people how to protect their property, because in part of this madness, there might be like a land grab that is happening. Do you know anything about that?
Dr. Kaufman is a brilliant man. We've done a couple shows. We actually have another show scheduled for, I haven't even told my audience yet. I think it's tomorrow.
Oh.
No. It's not tomorrow. It's very soon. I'm scheduling a lot of shows. I'm doing like a whole, I haven't done any shows for about 6 months. I've done very few. And right now I'm on a huge kick. I'm totally rebooting that, scheduling so many shows. So we have another one scheduled for the 29th of this month. I haven't talked to him as in terms of what's new with all his stuff, but he's a brilliant man. I'm very excited to talk with him and kind of revisit everything. I mean, anything he says, I'm pretty much, to some degree or another, in alignment with or in agreement with or something, because the way that he thinks is so logical and intense, and there's so many filters that he goes through in his mind that by the time he actually says something, I'm more likely to be confident that it's something real than not real, versus most of what I see from anyone ever, anything is the opposite. I'm typically a person who thinks more along the lines of everything I see is probably untrue until proven true, whereas with Dr. Kaufman, it's kind of the opposite. Just as like a default for me, just because I know him so well. Him and I went to Confluence together, and we spent a lot of time together in person. Actually, if I were to total up all the time I spent just talking with the guy in person, hanging out with him, probably several hours at least. And then we did a whole Q&A panel together and stuff. So yeah, he's a brilliant man. Really impressive, really brilliant man who there are not a lot of people who think like he does. So yeah.
But what he's saying is consistent with what you're saying about establishing a trust in order to protect your home. So I was kind of excited to hear that he was bringing that up and bringing that to his audience.
Well, the whole idea of trust is it goes a little deeper. It goes a lot deeper than that. If you go deeper, it becomes simpler, in my opinion. Typically, when you think of going deeper, you think of like, oh, it's more complicated. Well, in this case, no. Trust. If you have a trust and you are the trustee of that trust, you don't personally own anything inside of that trust. You control it. You run it. So the definition of a trust in its most basic simplicity is you have an executor who's the person who writes the rules of the trust. The trust is like basically almost like a nation. Like if you look up the term foreign state in Title 8, 8 USC 1101 subsection A14, I believe it is, foreign state. It literally says that a foreign state can, I don't like saying things without just 8 USC 1101 subsection A14. A foreign state, let me just make sure it's 14. Yeah, 14. The term foreign state includes outlying possessions of a foreign state, but self-governing dominions or territories under mandate or trusteeship shall be regarded as separate foreign states. So this is really, really wild. It's something that I haven't talked about really on any show. It's part of the past 6 months, me not going on many shows. It's kind of part of that whole discoveries that have occurred over the last 6 months or so. So what that's saying is territories that are under trusts shall be regarded as separate foreign states.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, tribal nations are essentially foreign states under a trusteeship, basically. So when you say I'm a Native American and I'm in a tribal nation, that you could say I'm in a foreign state that's under trusteeship. It would be saying the exact same terminology.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like taking the legalese and translating it into English. Native American can almost, if you want to go really crazy and you want to define that in English from legalese, it would be an individual who has conferred the nationality of a state, a foreign state, under a trusteeship upon themselves after birth by any means whatsoever. Which is wild, because people think that we're all slaves, but in fact, we actually have such infinite freedom, it's actually mind-boggling. It's actually literally mind-boggling. You can create a trust, and then now you can create a state within that trust, and now you have a foreign state, and now you can naturalize yourself into that foreign state all within a few seconds with no money and almost no knowledge. And it's so crazy, and it's so much freedom, and it's so powerful that people can't believe that it's true. And that's one of the main barriers that we run into, is people can't believe that this is true.
So who does own the stuff contained in the trust then?
No one. That's the thing is that so
God.
Back to my original, I got kind of off side. So the definition of a trust is you have an executor or a grantor or settler. It all kind of means the same thing. I like the word executor. It just makes more sense. I think it gives a better, like, you hear the word executor and it's like, boom, oh, that sounds like someone who's on top.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that term. I like terms that give you the picture, because the bad guys use terms to give you the pictures to manipulate you. So I like to do the same thing, but think of it from like a white hat standpoint,
Absolutely.
right?
To empower you.
What term am I going to be able to use that gives them the picture as quickly as possible to put them where it actually is, rather than where, I want to manipulate them to, right? So executor sounds like, a knight from the Knights Templar or something. It's like, oh, cool, how cool, an executor. So the executor is literally just the person who writes the contract, because the trust is really just a contract, right? So what is the contract? The contract is the executor writes the laws associated with how the trustee will deal with the asset for the benefit of the beneficiary.
Right.
If I were to give you a definition of the word trust and I were to translate it from legalese into English, that's how I would translate it. And you think to yourself, it can't be that simple. And I promise you, it took me years to get it to seem that simple, but it really actually is that. I mean, yes, there's successor trustees, there's all these other things, there's rules, there's laws, yes, there's a lot of things to it. But really, people try to jump into all that without understanding the basics. That's the problem. The basics, when you understand the basics, all that shit is all just accoutrement. It's not that important, right? So what is the legal word for the asset in the trust? Do you know what that is?
I do not.
It's the word res, R-E-S.
Hmm.
So if I were to say it in legalese, I would say the trust, which means the trust, which means that the executor wrote the contract for the trustee to deal with the res for the benefit of the beneficiary. That would be the legalese version. And then if I were to switch that into English, it would be the trust is the person at the very top wrote a contract. That contract was for one individual to manage an asset for the benefit of another individual.
Mm-hmm.
The one individual agreed with the contract written by the top individual. The beneficiary doesn't really have to agree to anything because the beneficiary, the way the beneficiary would quote unquote not agree with the contract is simply reject the benefits. But the beneficiary they don't need to sign the contract because they're not being asked of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's like if I just walk to you and try to just hand you this gold coin, I'm just like, here's a free gold coin. You're not really like rejecting a contract.
Right.
You're just do you want to benefit from this gold coin for free? And you're like, nah, I don't really want those benefits. That's really all. So there's not like, you don't need to get the beneficiary to like sign the trust.
Mm-hmm.
Beneficiaries don't sign trusts. The people who sign trusts are the executor and the trustee and any co-trustees. If there's only one trustee and one executor, you only have two signatures. So the trust is born out of only two signatures.
Mm.
This guy who wrote it and this guy who agrees to take on the responsibilities. And then the guy who takes on the responsibilities is also the guy who should be compensated for his activities and expertise.
Right.
And he's responsible for the assets. He doesn't own the assets though, meaning they're not his. He doesn't have title to the assets.
Mm-hmm.
He's responsible for controlling, growing, handling, and managing the assets.
Right.
But the trust, which is considered a legal person,
Mm-hmm.
is actually the owner. But the word owner's more complicated than anyone think it actually means. But just without getting into that, what people think the word owner means, the way I'm describing it is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Owner means that you have an interest in something, and it's actually a whole huge subcategories of ownership. That's actually pretty insane and sad. I don't think it really should be that complicated. A lot of the craziness comes out of that, right? Like on a certificate of title, you have registered owner.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the registered owner of this motor vehicle? Registered owner means you have the rights to the profits of a commercial activity. So it's like people hear that and they go, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So the thing is that ownership is a much deeper conversation, but without getting into the depth of that conversation, I'm trying to just keep it kind of fairly simple.
Sure.
And just say that, you know, like who owns in terms of what people think that word means, the trust owns it. And then the trustee just manages it or deals with it. And that's the cool thing about it. Is like, if you sue the trustee for something, it has nothing to do with the trust. Whereas if it's in your personal bank account with your name on it, the IRS can get into your personal bank account whenever they want.
Right.
So I looked up the date when you were on last, and it was June 1st, 2024.
June 1st, 2024. Wow. Okay.
So a lot of shit has happened since then. You put out the 1.0
2.0
series, and then you put out the 2.0 series.
No, 1.0 is old as hell. 1.0 is July of 2022.
Okay, so it's even before we had you.
I can't believe it's only
Yeah.
hasn't even been a freaking. Oh yeah, yes. Wait, yeah, it's been. Wow, I can't believe it. It feels like 3 years has gone by since I saw you guys last. Seriously.
So I started I was kind of shied away from 1.0 and instructed by you to just dive into 2.0 because you basically said 1.0 is shite and you've found out a lot, you've re-educated yourself, you've done even a deeper dive in 2.0. I feel like I need a fucking law degree to understand 2.0 because you're so smart and you have done so much of the legwork. What I'm most impressed by you, Brandon, is that you're not charging a fucking dime for this, for the stuff that you're putting online. There are people who are charging $700 to barely even skim the surface of the shit you're doing. So now you've taken this an even step further with this last chart that you've put out.
Yeah, that's almost like so 1.0 came out in July of 2022, and then 2.0 came out in August 18th or so of 2024, and then by December, I was already ready to make a 3.0, but it just wasn't. It's just not. I'm not going to do all that. It takes like a month to shoot all those videos.
Yeah, sure.
It takes like a month to prepare to shoot all the videos and write all the outlines. And then it takes another month to actually shoot all the videos and prepare everything and then launch it. Right. So I'm just not gonna. I'll probably do a 3.0 by this summer, I would say.
Okay. Will that have more of the monopoly piece strategy? I don't know what the proper terminology would that be.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
kind of all on the same. I mean, I'm still on that same page. A few really important facts have changed, as she's aware of, from the post-course video number 1 and video number 2. Post-course video number 1 brings the whole UCC3 thing into a flow chart. And then the whole post-course video number 2 is the separation between the man and the sole proprietorship, and then where citizenship lies, and it's this whole kind of flow chart as to where all those things are, and it's very eye-opening, right? So those two things were huge in terms of even my own, because those flow charts took me about 3 months of work nonstop to keep editing those and changing those and digging and digging and digging and then finalizing them. It was like a 3-month process to do those two flow charts. But so many cool things were coming out of that. So, a lot of things have been simplified dramatically. Like the revocation of election process is basically just a glorified change of address now. I mean, it's the simplest thing in the world. It's like a 1-page letter and like a really, really simple form that you fill out. It's like as complicated as paying your utility bill, I would say, or maybe like a little bit more complicated than paying your utility bill, but it's like almost that simple. And then the passport process has become way, 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 way simpler than it was before. I would say 10 times simpler.
You're talking about on 2.0, right?
Well, the very end, the post course, it's basically 3.0 at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah. I haven't dipped into that yet.
Yeah, it's basically 3.0 at this point, but I haven't released a 3.0 course. It's just the post course video number 1 and post course video number 2.
Gotcha.
And I'm trying to keep everything organized. It's just tough because there's so many things and so many this and so many lawsuits and just craziness, but it's a lot of confusion and a lot of chaos to dig through. So the fact that we're having to do all this and reorganize things over and over again is, I think, kind of normal.
Do you recommend just diving straight into the UCC, or do you think it's necessary to do 2.0 in order to really
2.0, and then the first few videos have gone through a lot of changes in the post-course videos. So if you do 2.0, just watch it from the beginning all the way to the very, very end, and then watch post-course video 1 and 2, and then maybe I'll have a 3 and a 4 by then or whatever. Just watch all of it all the way through. And by the time you get to the post-course videos, there's a few things on the first few videos that have been replaced or changed.
Mhm.
Besides that, everything else is the same all the way through.
Mhm. Okay.
And I can explain a lot of the stuff better and clearer and faster now, but ultimately it's all there still.
Okay.
What I love is so much of this is about language. And
Yeah.
you have really, I don't know very much about your personal history, but one thing that you talk about is how the Scientology courses really helped you to learn how to learn. And I think when some people hear Scientology, their butt clenches up and they're like, I'm going to have to give away my house to L. Ron Hubbard's
Ghost.
estate or whatever. And so I think there's a lot of misrepresentation when you're talking about the education. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I would love to kind of demystify that. And I think that that would help a lot of people understand your work because it is very complicated. This is not for dumb fucks.
Yeah, so in Scientology, the number one kind of premise or precept that we live off of, if we had a 10 commandments, commandment number 1 would be to never go past a word, phrase, symbol, etc. that you do not fully understand. And there are various courses and various aspects, and even part of our ethical codes, our moral codes, and even part of our justice system, internal justice system, that has various rules and even there's even very strict. I guess you could almost consider it like a felony type justice action that occurs for somebody who willfully bypasses words, phrases, symbols, and idioms that they don't fully understand. So this world of clearing up the definitions of words, terms, and symbols is something that I had already been doing for about 15 years prior to getting into the legal atmosphere. So for me, it was just another day in the office. And I think that's kind of the big difference between me and most people who are getting into this. This is all very new to them to start, like, they spend more time in a dictionary than anywhere else in the world. I've been spending more time in a dictionary than anywhere else in the world for like 15 years. So for me, it was just, it's as simple as getting in my car and driving it down the street or pumping gas.
Right.
So I think that's probably why I was able to take the information so rapidly and move the information so rapidly and translate the information so rapidly, because 15 years spending, sometimes hours a day in a dictionary, not legal terms. I almost never in my entire 15-year history had really gotten into legal terms much at all. But being in the dictionary and being in Black's Law Dictionary or other dictionaries and trying to figure out the definition and meaning of various words or phrases or ideas, or going through the historical time track of various cases or case law associated with the various definitions of words, terms, and phrases, that to me was just another day in the office.
And so what was the critical moment for you where you realized that there was this word magic that was happening, that people were complicit in enslaving themselves?
There's been many. I mean, the factual answer to your question is terms like money, terms like U.S. citizen, terms like citizen, terms like person, terms like United States. Everyone thinks they know what that means. If you really want to boil down the question behind United States, is it's just a bunch of states that are working together. The European Union is United States. The BRICS system is United States. NATO could be called United States. That's the thing that people don't understand. People are sort of static. If you were to separate those two words out, it's states, which would mean like independent groups of individuals that typically inhabit some kind of location. They don't necessarily need to, though. If you read the Law of Nations, they don't actually necessarily need to inhabit an actual physical location, but typically they do. And then they are united in some way towards some common goal or idea, or maybe for commerce purposes, or maybe for nationality purposes, or maybe for war purposes. There's many different reasons why states may be united.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is to assume when you hear United States that that's only referring to these specific states that may or may not be united. It's actually funny because the term United States and the how do you say it, term or name United States and the term or name United Nations, state and nation is the same term.
Mm.
So to say United States or to say United Nations, it's literally actually the same exact term. So then you hear United Nations and you think of the NGO, international organization, blah, 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 blah. But really, if you break those two terms down into their own individual words, you have nation and then you have united. So really, if you think about it, United States or United Nations it could be a term used anywhere in the world, and it's constantly changing everywhere in the world. So more and more people need to ask questions and think of, well, what states are you referring to, and how exactly are they united? And that's like shattering glass on the ground. It's like taking a whole big mirror and smashing it on the ground and watching the glass fly everywhere, because no one's ever asked that.
Right.
And that's the problem.
I love how you and you do a very hilarious accent when you do this, when you talk about sovereign citizens.
Citizen.
I have had quite the chuckle over that. Do you think part of what's happening is that people want what you are explaining, but they don't necessarily have the language yet? They haven't quite figured it out. And so they are grabbing onto something that sounds really good without really understanding what they're signing on to?
There's been a lot of really awful people who have tried to take like one piece of this information and apply it in like the most awful way ever. Like that guy, Darrell Brooks, that guy who drove that car and all those people. And then like in some desperate effort to try to defend himself in court, he started spouting off stuff that sounds like some of the stuff that we study and then talk about. What does the media do? What does the crazy, insane media do? They pick those people up and then they make those people the face of our movement, right? That's the whole, it's positioning. If you study positioning, which is a marketing technology, positioning is, in my opinion, it's right. If you were to place it on a graph between marketing and PR, positioning is kind of like right in the middle. It's a really, 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 really powerful marketing PR technology called positioning. And positioning is a technology where you can position against or with something. You can position against on this direction and then with in this direction, right? So like you survey a bunch of people and you find out what do you hate. We hate, let's say child molesters, because that's pretty common, right? So you would position yourself against child molesters and you would position yourself with a strong family unit, strong fathers, strong mothers. So you're not saying much. You're saying almost nothing. You're saying, F these dudes, I'm with these dudes, and that's it. That's sort of like positioning in a nutshell. You're not really saying a whole lot. But because of your position in relation to two other things that people are already aware of, hey, I hate that guy too, and I love these guys. This guy hates those guys and loves these guys. I like this guy. It's like a completely emotional, instantaneous, reaction-based affinity that you now have towards that particular element, right? Yes. So they're using that same technology all the time in the media to position people in certain places to destroy or undermine their position or what they're saying, right? So the term sovereign citizen, right? And the thing is, if you go back 100 years, Congress actually talks about how every citizen in America is sovereign, and they literally use the term sovereign citizen. So it's kind of goofy, but that's changed a lot over the years and stuff. Really, if you take it in its most basic element, I don't really like the term, even if you were to use it in the context of what Congress said 100 years ago. I'm not the biggest fan in the world, because the word citizen is very simple. It's taken me a long time. I mean, I've tried to figure this word out since literally day one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think now I've finally kind of got it in a pretty simple spot, right? It's a contract where you agree to subjugate yourself to a group in exchange for the benefits or protections or securities offered by that group. It's really, that's it. I mean, if you really want to break it down, it's I'm going to come under you. It's like moving into a monarchy. I'm going to move into the monarch's castle. Okay, well, you're going to be cleaning the fucking floors, and you're going to be, scrubbing the pots and pans in exchange.
Right.
If the guys come over the hill, you're not going to be slaughtered in 15 seconds. That it's the same idea. Or the feudal system where you have the farmer who's a half mile up the hill, down the hill from the castle.
Mm-hmm.
So if the farmer down the hill doesn't want to pay his taxes, that's fine. When the cavalry comes over the hill and they have their flaming arrows, you're going to be one of the first stops, and no one's coming to save you. So that's fine, no problem. You don't want to pay your taxes? No problem, not an issue at all. Just know that you'll wake up tomorrow, you'll be the first place to burn, right? So it's kind of the same. That is the basic idea of citizenship, right? Whereas the word sovereign is the polar opposite. The word sovereign is that I don't want or need necessarily to be subject to or under. I don't. It's the farmer down the hill who knows that somebody could go over the hill tomorrow, and they say, I know someone can come over the hill tomorrow, but I still don't want to pay taxes, knowing that I won't get your protections if needed.
Right.
So when you say sovereign citizen, you're saying an individual who has decided that they don't want the contractual benefits and security from the king. They're not going to pay the taxes, but they are going to pay the taxes, and they do want the securities of the king. It doesn't make any fucking sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So the thing is that it's directly counterintuitive, even though technically Congress has used that term in a way that, because they didn't used to think of it like this. They used to think of it like the citizens were the senior part, and we work for the citizen, and the citizens are the kings of us. Right. And we work for the citizens for the benefit of the city. It's like a trust. We're the trustees, and the citizens up here are the beneficiaries. Mm-hmm. So when they said sovereign citizen, they meant it like that. But then over the years, it's sort of like converted to where now they're idiots, and they think that we're below them, and they run us. And somehow over the past 100 years, it got kind of flipped. So now the word sovereign citizen means some idiot who thinks he's not a part of our nation, who is. Right. But what's so crazy about that term, crazy about that term is the 14th Amendment created this thing where everyone thinks they're U.S. citizens, and it's this total piece of shit amendment, and it stripped everyone of their rights, and no one's an American, because the definition of the term U.S. citizen basically means a released slave without citizenship after the Civil War, which you can see in the slaughterhouse cases in 1872, right? And the Dred Scott cases and the slaughterhouse cases, and there's a few other ones. So you got to think, even within the confines of the 14th Amendment, which has like 1/100th of the rights, you don't have rights as a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen. You have privileges and immunities, right? But even within those privileges and immunities, the number one commandment is there is no indentured servitude, there is no slavery, there is no peonage, there is no forced labor, there is no forced services. Even like here's normal America, and then you have to go down. I can't even do it on the camera because it required me to like go down an elevator like 450 floors. But down here is U.S. citizenship, right? Right. Even in U.S. citizenship, peonage and forced labor, the whole point of it was slavery.
Right.
So then they're going to turn around and tell you, oh no, bud, you have no say in this matter, and we're going to force this contract on you. That's insane. Even within the confines of the 14th Amendment, that is completely insane. If you say you are not a citizen, you are not a citizen. End of story. Even within the 14th Amendment. There is no conversation. There is no anything. If I say I'm not a citizen and they say you are, it's fucking lawsuit immediately for slavery, peonage, forced labor. Unacceptable. And peonage, slavery, forced labor, it's like 30 years in prison. You know, so it's like bang, it's like instantaneous life sentence. You know, even within the 14th Amendment. So what people don't understand is, again, if you're an American, you're way up here. But even if you are way down here, which everybody is pretty much down here, even there, as long as you understand these basic concepts and you understand how to contract, it's still infinite freedom. Because the thing is that you can't be forced into any contract. It's a physical impossibility. And you say to yourself, well, if I don't get car insurance, if I don't have car registration, they're going to take my car. Yeah, until you sue them and say, whoa, wait a second there. Are you forcing me into a contract? Are you forcing me into indentured servitude? Are you forcing me into slavery? Are you forcing me into peonage, which are all individual sections in Title 18, crimes and criminal penalties. And then all of a sudden, their tune changes. And now from that point forward, if anybody tries to pull you over, they pull you up, and there's probably going to be a note on there. Don't fuck with this guy because he's going to sue you for Title 18 charges, for peonage and all. And then that's it. And then you're free. So the thing is that freedom is, in my mind, freedom is very easy to access. Like traveling and stuff like that, and cars, it's a little bit more complicated, but in a lot of other areas, it's super, super simple. With cars and stuff, you may need to bang upside the head with a frying pan once, and then now you'll have the freedom, right? But to me, it's not that complicated. You bang them. It's like that. I don't know if you. Is it that one video? It reminds me of the old man, and there's this alligator coming up to him. He hits him in the head with the frying pan 2 times, and then the alligator runs back into the lake. That's what I think of. That's literally what I think of. It's like, it's that simple. They come, you bang them with the frying pan once, and you wait a second, just like that guy with the alligator. The alligator's still there, opens his mouth back up again. You bang them with the frying pan again, and then now they're gone, and then you're never going to see the alligator again. It's to me, the idea that you have to fight for 30 years to get your rights is insane. I mean, it's just like, you don't have to do that. You just have to understand the basic ideas of state citizenship versus federal U.S. citizenship, the 14th Amendment, and then the basics of contracts. And to me, that's like the shortest path from complete slavery, which is an illusion, to total freedom. Because then when you start realizing that in the courts operate off of what's called dialectic materialism, which is something that I haven't even made any videos about yet. It's something that I'm kind of getting into a lot of studies about right now, right? Dialectic materialism is basically a Marxist idea, and it's actually very simple. You look it up online; it's very complicated. It's actually a very simple idea. It's all truth is derived from a thesis and an antithesis fighting, and then that's supposed to be like logical debate, and then from that, the truth is extracted. Essentially, that's basically it's the actual terminology is thesis, antithesis, and I think synopsis. Dialectic materialism, right? And it's based off Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. So it's literally a Marxist idea. Yes, synthesis. So you have thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right?
Right.
So the court system, and nobody knows this unless you're actually in the court. I've been in the courts like crazy person for like over a year, about 1 year, almost to the day. And I'm telling you, this is a huge breakthrough. This is a huge breakthrough. If you say the sky is green and the other party never says anything in response to the fact that the sky is green, within the confines of that lawsuit, the sky is green now becomes a fact of the case.
Wow.
And that's why the legal system's so confusing. And I think I finally fucking figured it out. It's dialectic materialism. It's Marxism. People don't like Marxism. So they're very turned off by this idea. Now, I'm not a Marxist, and I think that dialectic materialism is absolutely batshit crazy. But there is one aspect of it that I find very, very interesting. It is total freedom. If I say that I'm a purple giraffe and I'm 13 feet tall and the sky is blue and I drive around in a Ferris wheel, and the other party doesn't rebut all of those presumptions, that's all true now. Now you got to think, it's interesting because does the court work for you or do you work for the court? Do the people, if the court's here, are the people here or are the people here? That's the question. That's a complicated question because you got to think if the courts are here and the people are here, then to some degree, dialectic materialism kind of makes sense, sort of. Because all they're doing is saying, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sky is blue. Yes, sir. I'm a 13-foot giraffe. Yes, sir. I have 14 penises. Yes, sir. Do you see? So you got to think, what right does the court system, which is nothing more than a utility of the people, have to say what is true and what is not? It's a fascinating conversation that I don't think anyone's ever had before. And that's kind of the conversation I think that my platform is going into right now. Because is dialectic materialism, for what they're trying to do, really the craziest, most insane thing in the world? And I'm starting to wonder if it is or not, even though I'm not really in agreement with dialectic materialism, and I'm for sure not a fucking Marxist, but it sure is fascinating to think we're not subject to the courts. The courts are a utility of the people. They don't have a right to tell us what's real. The only people who have a right to tell them what's real is us. If we tell them the sky is green, the sky is green. So it becomes this entire philosophy of objective versus subjective reality. And what people don't realize is that is what you're doing when you enter the courts and you say, I'm this, or I think this, or this is it, and this is that. If the other party, so what the attorneys do is they just create all this horse shit called presumptions and they throw it at you. And then you go fucking ballistic and insane and you get all emotional and you don't know how to address and handle each point. So what happens is if they throw 8 piles of shit at you, because literally that's what they're doing, is they're shitting in their hand and throwing at you like a monkey. If you don't clean up all 8 piles of shit, one of those piles of shit becomes a fact of the case.
Right.
So what I've been trying to figure out is how to handle that, how to combat that. We've had some breakthroughs recently. It's been a real struggle. It's been very difficult for me to understand this. I was very angry for a long time, not understanding things. So now that I understand it, which is a very recent breakthrough, like 2 weeks ago, I think we're going to start to I'm here for the long haul. I'm here to just keep doing this until we figure it out. So if it takes me another year, 2 years, 10 years, till I die, whatever, it doesn't matter. To me, it's irrelevant. It's just a matter of, just trying to figure out that next step and trying to figure out what do we have to do to gain control of and to handle and to play this game of this dialectic material. Because the thing is that when you start studying the rules of evidence, when you put personal knowledge on the record in the form of, like, let's say an affidavit, you break the presumption cycle.
Right.
So I didn't know that up until really recently, right? So it's just been like the whole year has just been this presumption game, and I've lost everything pretty miserably. A lot of the cases are in appeals and they've just been sitting there. So technically they're all still in progress, but it's been a real struggle. But it wasn't up until recently that I realized how to break that presumption cycle. And I think that's a really, really big discovery. Because when you break the presumption cycle, now what happens is they can't just create and manufacture horseshit and throw it at you anymore.
Yeah, the snowball can't get any bigger.
The snowball can't get any bigger, right? And they can't keep shitting in their hand and throwing it at you. right?
So what you're saying is that the presumption, if you don't contradict or answer to the presumption, that becomes fact, and then that becomes precedent.
Precedent is typically settled at the appeals or Supreme Court level.
Okay.
So like if you're in district court, which is like the lower level federal court, or if you're in superior court, which is the lower level state court, that's not necessarily, I mean, you'll see it listed sometimes in court cases, this court case, blah, 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 but you can be like, hey, fuck that. That's not an appeals case. So again, even the things that are stuck in the lawsuits are all presumption. If you say, hey, this case, and you try to use it as a precedent, and it's not an appeals or a Supreme Court case, but you don't ever say anything in response or rebut that assumption, within that little court case of where you're in, that case, which isn't precedent, becomes precedent inside your case only.
Okay.
So again, like I'm going to do videos on this, and you're going to see more of me talking about this. Every court case is a micro war of dialectic materialism.
That makes sense. Yeah, the 2.0 is very, I mean, it seems to all be moving towards litigation, which freaks a lot of people out, including me. What do you think are some of the main fundamental things to be comfortable with before you can grok litigation?
Marxism, I guess, would be my answer to this point. I mean, it's literally the activity of Marxism. That's literally what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And that sounds horrible for most people. But the thing is that I don't see any other option. So I'm here because I don't see any other option.
Okay.
And I've never heard of any other option. I've never seen any other option. I've never seen anything that even comes close to a second option. If I did, maybe I'd jump ship. I haven't seen anything. So I'll keep going where I'm going until I see something that maybe could be an alternative. I don't see any alternative. So
do you foresee any consequences stemming from this stuff getting so widespread and more people putting it into practice? Like, are they going to start kind of getting wise to it and constructing some, I don't know what the proper terminology
amending
would be.
The law?
Yeah.
No. The all this stuff is so old and it's so complicated that most of the people don't even know. They just pretend to know with their nice suits and their nice ties and their nice briefcases. They have no clue.
And hope
no
that
idea.
Nobody challenges them.
They have no idea. I've never met any bar card attorney that has any clue what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of bar card attorneys that follow my shit now too. So, you know, it's, you know, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just trying to dig through all the confusion and chaos, which nobody else seems to want to do. So that's it. A lot of the bar card attorneys like to thrive in or create chaos and confusion.
Of course.
I'm trying to actually dig into it and figure out the simplicity of it and how it really works. So
they're counting on people being intimidated going into that situation.
Yeah, they want the big, huge pieces of wood and all the security guards and the big suits and the briefcases. It's all just an illusion. Ceremony. I mean, it's an illusion no different than the monetary system.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, banks are these big, huge, crazy buildings with marble Colosseum fronts, and it's just all just a big horse. It's all everything we live in is all illusion based.
For sure.
We live in a gigantic Hollywood, basically.
I think what I'm most impressed about you is your demeanor, that you don't go into these environments acting like an asshole or a crazy person. And I think that really speaks a lot to your character. And I think that's one of the reasons why, even if you don't see that you've had success, I think you appeal to a lot of people because you're not trying to burn it all down. You're trying to reconstruct it or just maybe show people what the infrastructure is in a way that's very peaceful. And so I've seen that you do have police officers following you on Instagram and who are actually working with your process and having success in that.
Yep.
What I'm curious about is, I know you've talked a lot about cars, and a lot of people get into the signature eddy of how to sign for a car. Do some of those people have negative experiences where it doesn't work, or then they come and try to repossess the car? Like, I've heard the triumphs. What is the other side of that? Are there people who just don't succeed?
I tell everyone that every single time you go into one of these situations, you should be building your case all the way from the very beginning. Everything should be assumed it's going to wind up in litigation, because 99% of the time it will. It's a real thing, right? The experiences from the car situation, which I haven't done a whole lot with over the past few weeks, it was almost just like a fun little thing that I skipped onto for a few months, and then I kind of just fucked off with it.
Yeah.
And I had actually done that a couple of years ago, actually, with the cars. Not nearly as much success, but we kind of went on a whole car spree like a year and a half, 2 years ago. So it's sort of like something I do every year and a half. It seems like, just I don't plan it; it just kind of happens. The answer to your question is, it's all over the map. All over the map. We have people who call in and they try to get a bill, and there's no account. They never even made an account for the person. So the car was sold to them, but there's literally like no financing account at all whatsoever. We have situations where my personal favorite, the one I literally was laughing for like a whole week, almost nonstop. I just walked on the street and start bursting into laughter. Is there's been a couple, 2 or 3, or actually several different situations where the financing company won't even issue them a bill. They call trying to get a bill, and the financing company says, "We are not going to send you a bill." Those are the ones that I was literally in tears laughing so fucking hard. That's absolutely the most hysterical shit ever. So really the biggest answer to your question is, even the financing companies don't know anything about how these notes are processed and exchanged. So even the financing company, we're running circles around them like the Tasmanian devil, and they just have no fucking idea what to do and what all this shit is. So like, it's the reactions are all over the map. Some reactions are they never get a bill, they can't get a bill, there's no account. Some of the reactions are threats. I mean, threats are very typical. That's like probably the most common thing that happens, is that people get threatened. And then sometimes there's repossessions. Sometimes there's repossessions where the repossession guy shows up, the guy finds the repossession guy, explains the situation, threatens litigation, calls the police come, and they actually shoo the repo guy away. And then it becomes way more complicated, because now the repo guy won't come back because he's scared of the situation.
Yeah.
So now it's a complicated situation. But the way that I teach it, the thing is the way I teach it and how it actually goes are two very different things, right? The way that I teach it is that once you get the car, now you need to force them to perform, and then they're not going to perform within 30 or 60 days. And then you need to sue them quickly, rapidly. You should be on top of them the whole way through. The day you walk into the dealership, buying the car, calling them and getting performance, filing litigation, and then all the way through the litigation process. They should be on a short leash, and they should be in a gimp suit, and you should be beating the piss out of them with a shovel all the way through that entire process. Now, the percentage of people who actually do it that way is not very many. So the problem basically comes down to, people say, "Oh, Brandon's process." The thing is that's Brandon's process.
Right.
Only a very, very, very few people actually do Brandon's process. So people have all these other things that they're doing that are not Brandon's process. And then now it's like, oh, well, are you having success or failure with Brandon's process? And I'm over here like, that's not my fucking process, you fucking piece of shit. That's not my fucking process.
Right.
Oh, can you fucking, and like doing stupid shit, trying to get a car, hiding from phone calls, not responding to phone calls, not doing this, not sending novation letters and suing people and preparing litigation. None of this has anything to do with anything that I'm teaching. So they say it's brand, it's process. I don't know. That's that guy's process. Jim Jones, that's Jim Jones's process. That ain't my fucking process.
And I've heard of some examples of and this was like a recent post, maybe within the last 2 or 3 months when you were still talking about it, that some people were being told they had to at least make one payment in order to start the financing. It seemed very kind of confusing to me. Can you speak to that?
There was a couple of reports where the dealership gets banged really, really hard by the financing company if the individual who gets the financing doesn't make the first payment. So some people were like, I'm going to make the first couple of payments and then I'm going to get a bill and do all this stuff, right? It doesn't really matter. I don't really care as long as you're trying to find the smoothest and best path to perform and then force them to perform and then litigate if they don't perform. There's a million different little teeny variables that are all along that line, right? But the problem is that a lot of individual people are trying to figure out a way to do this without having to litigate because they're scared. It's a disaster. How do I run through a really intense burning building without getting on fire? And you're just standing outside the building for hours trying to figure out, how am I going to run through this burning building? You're going to get fucking burned, bro. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you're going to be standing there for the rest of your life. You're going to be standing there until it's just, everything is just gone. I mean, there is going to be litigation. You need to prepare for litigation. You're building your case throughout the whole front end. Record your phone calls, record your texts, save your emails, keep your documents. All that's going to be evidence. And if on the extreme off chance they perform or just quote unquote never make an account for you, like some people have experienced, congratulations, you don't need to go into litigation. But I guarantee you that people who had that happen to them were preparing for litigation.
Right.
That's kind of just the way the world works. If you're ready for it 1,000,000% and you're working toward it and you've got everything organized, magically things tend to work out for you a lot better. If you're hoping, I'm hoping I don't have to go to litigation, the world is going to crush the ever-loving fuck out of you every goddamn time. Just kind of the way it is, you know. It's just like Murphy's Law, right? So
maybe the point is that you just need to get a good suit.
Oh, you mean lawsuit? You mean a suit? Like a suit?
No, like a physical suit. So you're ready to go to court. Like, maybe that's what scares people.
Yeah, suit. I mean, you know, I remember the last time I went down to the courthouse a couple times, 2 or 3 times, just dressed up like a suit, just walked around, just for fun. I just wanted to kind of experience the environment and stuff. I was doing a name change. It's technically a suit. It's technically a case, but it's like it's not really it's not like what you think, a lawsuit. You know, you're not like suing somebody. Right. It's a petition for name change, which technically is, it's all the same process of a lawsuit. You pay the same amount. You do all the civil cover letter. It's all the same shit. Right. And when I went down there, I had to go down there a couple times for that. And I thought to myself, well, shit, I'm going to be down there. I might as well put on a suit and carry a nice leather briefcase and walk up and down the hallways and kind of just peek in the little rooms and kind of get an idea of what this place is like, you know. And all the lawyers were looking at me and waving at me and nodding at me, and they thought I was a fucking lawyer. And it's like, yeah, I'm just as much of a lawyer as you are, motherfucker. You don't know why? Because I got a suit, I got a tie, and a fucking briefcase and leather shoes. That's about as much as you got, motherfucker. You know what I mean? So you know, it's like, hey, another fucking shyster. How you doing? Like, yeah, exactly, motherfucker. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, you know, it was a very interesting experience, honestly.
So why do you think that Black's Law is not being taught to bar card attorneys? Why are they not learning this? It seems so
No,
intuitive.
they do. They are, and they do. It's not that they aren't. It's just that the whole point of an attorney is I can make up any presumption, and if you don't rebut that assumption or understand how to rebut that assumption, I win. That is law. It's Marxism.
But you don't want dismissals. That's one thing you've been very clear about. That a dismissal isn't necessarily a win for you.
Well, I'm the plaintiff. I've never been the defendant my whole life. I've never been sued or had any criminal cases ever my whole life since the day I was born. I've never been the defendant, and I would love to see someone fucking try. No one's tried. So the thing is that if they did, it'd be like getting a freaking Christmas gift. I'll tell you right now. But the thing is that no one's tried. Everything I do is all me as the plaintiff. I live the most opposite sovereign citizen life of anyone that anyone's ever seen. I'm the plaintiff trying to sue someone else, trying to get jurisdiction, and then my jurisdiction's being denied. I'm literally the opposite of everything everyone knows a sovereign citizen to be.
Right.
So my whole life is from a completely opposite perspective. So I don't deal with anything criminal. It's all civil and it's all plaintiff. We have a lot of great defense stuff. Don't get me wrong. Like, we have tons of successes with people getting sued by banks for not paying their credit card bill and it getting thrown out really fast. That's super easy. But I'm trying to go on the offensive. I'm trying to file documents, serve them on the defendant, and then I'm the plaintiff the whole time.
So how does that affect that person's credit if they don't pay their credit card and then they get sued?
Typically they report it until it's settled in some way.
And then that just, you can have that removed from your credit report?
We have a lot of
cool
cool examples that people have done in terms of getting credit stuff removed, but like, you're going to see a lawsuit from me in the next couple of months, probably. It's going to be kind of a whole new level that I'd like to try to see. I call it credit reprogramming. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it's totally new territory, like almost everything I do. Credit reprogramming has to do with filing and completing a registered trademark of your name, and then suing the credit companies, because as the controller of that trade name, they cannot place anything on the... Basically what it is they have to come to you and get your approval before they can place any item on the credit report. I call it credit reprogramming rather than credit repair. I think credit repair is an extremely low, destitute, homeless version of it. I think credit reprogramming is proper legal adult level litigation. It's, you don't have a right to produce any sort of information about this name because you are making money from the production and selling of this information or issuing of this information. You can't make any commercial gains using this trade name. It's been a registered trademark. Now I'm going to give you permission to put anything positive on the account, but anything negative on the account would become a registered trademark violation. So you're going to hit them with like 50 grand every single time anything negative at all hits that report.
Love it.
That's kind of where I'm headed. I haven't released all that yet, but that's kind of like another one of my suits that I've been working on for months. There's going to be more to it, obviously, than that, but that's going to be kind of the basis of the whole idea. I'm actually going to give them a power of attorney, and it's going to be exactly what they can and can't do with that trade name. And if they fall outside of that power of attorney, then just bang them for a 50 grand lawsuit every single time. Every single instance is $50,000. So.
Wow.
Cool. Well, asking for a friend, to backtrack a little bit to the revocation of election. Lovett says that you need to have your back taxes caught up before you do that. What is your take on that?
So I've completely shifted off of the revocation of election. I actually don't I don't use it anymore. I've actually changed it to what's called an 8822B form, which is just a change of address, literally.
And go into that.
So if you look at, I can do a screen share and show you. Let me just pull up something here. Do a screen share. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So if we go down to I forget where it's even at. I think it's here. This is the one of the flow charts I was telling you about. I mean, pretty much everything is here on either this one or the other one, right? But if we go to, that might be too much. That's okay. If we go down to, here it is, 3.8.45. So IRM 3.8.45. 0.5.10.1. 0.5.10.1. 5.10.1. Here we go. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
So if a bill of exchange or registered bill of exchange is received from a taxpayer authorizing the campus to settle their account through FedWire, send everything received to the following address, right? So in English, what this means is if someone gets a bill and they would like to send it back and have the government pay the bill for them, send it to this address. It's basically the ultra legalese version of saying the same thing. And what that's based off of is 18 USC 8. 18 USC 8 defines obligation or other security of the United States. The term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposit, bills, checks, drafts for money, etc. So all bills are actually the government's bills. And you can actually see proof of that in my other flow chart, the UCC3 flowchart, which is here. And if we go to the bottom, it reminds me of where this is found, which is here. 31 USC 1501. 31 USC 1501. This is documentary evidence requirement for government obligations, where it's referring to 18 USC 8, obligations or other securities of the United States. An amount shall be recorded as an obligation of the United States government only when supported by documentary evidence of, number 2 is very, very shocking, a loan agreement showing the amount and terms of repayment.
Wow.
So if you submit your mortgage into the court docket as evidence under 31 USC 1501 and mark it as an obligation or other security of the United States, you just proved that your mortgage or your business loan or your credit card bill is actually a responsibility for the United States Treasury to pay, not for you to pay it. And number 8 is also very, very fascinating. Number 8 is services provided by public utilities. Number 6 is also fascinating. A liability that may result from pending litigation. So all pending litigation is also an obligation or other security of the United States.
Cray.
So you don't, if someone were to sue me for $10 million and win, it's not my bill. People wonder why I'm so confident in the court system. This is why I'm so confident in the court system. What are you going to do to me? You can't do anything to me. So how do I walk in there with so much confidence? It's very simple. I just know the law.
Mm.
You could sue me for $170 quadrillion, and I would literally just laugh and have a cigarette. It wouldn't make any difference. You could win. You could win against me for $170 quadrillion, and literally I'd be sleeping like a baby.
So what does this have to do with the change of address form with the revocation of election, which you no longer use?
Well, the thing is that if you look at this section, if a bill of exchange or a registered bill of exchange is received from a taxpayer authorizing the campus to settle their account through Fedwire, all you're doing, they're saying if you receive a bill and you want the government to handle it for you, send it to the government at this address. That's what this is saying in English. So what I'm teaching now is you use an 8822B form, which is a change of address of responsible party. It's literally a change of address form. I'm not even kidding. It's that simple. And
oh my God.
You fill it out, and where it says new responsible party's name, you're going to put Department of the Treasury Office of Executive Secretary.
Huh.
New responsible parties, SSN, TIN, or EIN. I put in here, not sure. I've tried to find it. I can't find it. It says here, daytime telephone number of person to contact. You're going to type in phone number of Department of Treasury, Office of the Executive Secretary, 212-622-2000. You're going to copy that, and you're going to place it in your change of address form, which I've lost. Here it is. That's the phone number that they're going to call if they have any issues. That's it. It's literally just a change of address. And then I have a cover letter that you're going to attach. It's right here.
And how do you sign that?
You would sign it on behalf of the sole proprietorship. So you'd sign it as the agent on behalf of the sole proprietorship. And then you have this very, very simple little tiny, look, you can see the first page is just a title, who it's from, who it's to. The back page is just that one section that I just showed you, the bill of exchange section, a teeny tiny bit of information, and then sincerely, that's it. That's a whole letter. Address change and permanent authorization for the campus to settle the account of a taxpayer using a bill of exchange or registered bill of exchange that is processed through Fedwire, which is just legalese for the government is now permitted to pay all the bills of the sole proprietorship on my behalf. Thank you very much. That's this in English.
In this case, any taxes that you might owe.
Yes. Well, yes, but this same process can be used for literally any bill. Again, HNUSC 8 includes any bill, gold certificate, silver certificate. What is it again? The term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposit, bills, checks, drafts for money. So technically speaking, if you were to lose a lawsuit and there were to be a judgment, that judgment is a bill. So it would fit under an obligation or other security of the United States, which is exactly why in 31 USC 1501, you have subsection 6, a liability that may result from pending litigation. You would send the judgment for your litigation that you lost to the Treasury to have them pay it.
And anywhere on that form, are you putting your social security number so that comes out of your trust, or does it have nothing to do with that?
I don't know much about all that trust stuff. I've never seen anyone have any success with that.
Gotcha.
The social security number, if you look on the SS5 form, the SS4 form. If you look on the SS4 form, which is the application to try to get, I mean, they always give them, to get an EIN number. If you scroll down to subsection 9A, it says here type of entity. If you look under sole proprietor, it says here SSN. The social security number, and this is part of the big breakthrough that happened when I was doing post-course video number 2, the flowchart. The social security number is nothing more than a tax identification number of a sole proprietorship. And that was what changed the whole passport process. That's all from this flowchart. This is the all caps and public versus private eagle eye down flowchart. The sole proprietorship's right here. And then everything plugs into the sole proprietorship.
Okay. Two sort of questions that go hand in hand. One, has anybody tried this? Two, how would you know if it worked after you've done it?
I just sent a whole bunch of bills. The IRS sent me a whole bunch of bills recently. I sent them all to the Treasury to get paid. And I sent the 8822B to permanently authorize the campus to settle the account of the taxpayer using FedWire through any bill of exchange that they may get or receive. I've already sent all of that in. I have not received anything back.
How long does it typically take them to respond? What would you opine?
I'm not of that mind. I'm not of that mindset. My mindset is I sent it, it's done. And if they don't perform, I'm just going to sue the IRS. It's very simple. I mean, if they choose to not perform, then I'll sue the IRS. It's that simple. They are going to perform one way or the other. It's just, are you going to perform without me suing you, or are you going to perform with me suing you, and then now I'm going to get damages too? That's it. Like in my mind, that's all it is. You know, I send it and forget it. It's their choice if they want to perform or not.
True.
Because if they don't perform, now we're getting into, well, hold on a second. I've already authorized the campus to settle the account of the taxpayer using a bill of exchange, a registered bill of exchange on FedWire. Are you attempting to try to place me into some sort of forced contract? Are you trying to harass me? Are you refusing performance? UCC 3 talks about you can't refuse performance only under certain conditions. So what conditions of UCC 3-502 are you refusing performance on? If they aren't, even UCC 3 says if they don't dishonor the instrument, now you can sue them for breach of contract. So you just sue them for breach of contract.
Do you think in theory that this would work on student loans too?
Oh, definitely. I think the lowest hanging fruit, if anyone wants to test this stuff, and people always ask me, how can I test this stuff? The lowest risk. And the lowest risk is to test it on things that don't have collateral attached to it. The highest risk would be your home.
Yeah.
That you live in. Like a rental property is like way down here. It's my grandfather's home that he built it with his own two hands. And there's literally fucking gold flakes in the wall from a sword that he had in World War I that was melted down and placed in the fucking walls. That's like, whoa, I wouldn't go there. That's pretty high risk, right? And then as we go down from there, we've got a rental property. I don't live there, but it would suck to lose it. And then we go down from there. We have a car or a boat or a jet ski. And then, like, let's say, a car that grandpa built. That would be like the highest of that category.
Right.
You don't want anybody fucking taking that thing. And then below that is a car I don't give a fuck about. And then below that, and then below that, and then student loans is like way down here. Because there's no collateral. There's no collateral on a student loan. So what are they going to take?
My Banana Republic card.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, credit cards are another great option. The problem is that with credit cards, they're going to report it on your credit score. I don't think student loans can even report shit on your credit score. So student loans is really, truly, I'm not kidding. If you have student loans, in my opinion, it's a absolutely wonderful place. I actually kind of wish I had student loans because the thing is that student loans is in my opinion, it's the best training ground. It's the best place to get started because you are operating with zero risk.
So I took out, I think, a $5,000, I think it started out as $2,500 student loan when I was in my 20s. And it went into default, and it was reported on my credit report, and I had to go to get out of default, and now it has improved my credit because it is a 29-year-old loan that's in good standing, which I found so very bizarre. I haven't paid a fucking dollar on that. I paid like $5 a month for 6 months to get out of default. And my credit rating soared just from cleaning that up, just that very little bit. So now I've been able to go, I'm now in a master's program, and I'm getting ridiculous loans right now. So I will be in the place to do this in another year or 2 years when I'm out of school, because right now I'm still in the loan realm.
Yeah, it's a if there's anything that has collateral attached to it and you don't mind losing the collateral, it's low risk. If you have something that doesn't have any collateral at all, it's low risk. If you have something that has collateral and you're scared to lose it, it's higher risk. If you have something that has a collateral that means a whole lot to you, a car that you built with your father, and you went in and got a payday loan on it, and you put the car down as collateral on the payday loan, and it's something that you and your dad rebuilt the engine in, that's super high risk. So it just depends on what's the collateral and how badly do you not want to lose it. That's the question. And for most people who maybe want to do this, your best choice might be to find a no collateral loan, even if it's a couple $1,000, go down to the local pawn shop, or I don't know, some craziness, or even a credit card is fine because there's no collateral on a credit card. Ring that thing up, $2,000 or $10,000, go on a spending spree, and then use that as your training ground and your practice ground. Don't grab onto your only car, which you love so dearly, that gets you back and forth from work, and then go and do discharge activities and lawsuits involving that particular car, because now if they do repo that car for some reason and you can't get to work, now things are not good. So you're better off getting a $500 credit card and going out and spending $500 and then doing all this stuff with it than you are to do it with something that has collateral that you are afraid of losing. There's a lot of non-collateral based options. Even for people who have really, really bad credit, you could get a prepaid card for a minute and pay it off, and then in 2 months they'll give you something, $500 or $1,000, and then go spend $1,000 on horse shit, and then now sue them and do that and do all that. So it isn't that complicated,
All roads lead to suing, though. We should be prepared to sue.
I think at some point, as we start to see more and more of these cases moving into the appellate and Supreme Courts, and as you see the tide sort of shifting on this, I think either A, we're going to see a huge monetary change where the Fed's kicked out, because I know there's a lot of talk about that right now. If that were to happen, then none of this would be applicable. But then we also wouldn't have inflation. So it's a two-sided sword, right? So if we went back to a gold and silver based system, which is called specie in the courts, if you go back to the 1800s and study a lot about them talking about the difference between negotiable instruments and real money, they call it specie, SPECIE. If we go back to a specie based economy, the dollars and the silver dollars and the gold dollars are so strong that it kind of becomes inexcusable, because you can flip burgers at McDonald's 20 hours a week and have a family of 2 and a 5-bedroom house and 2 brand new cars. The buying power of the dollar has been so severely undermined in the past 110 years that if we were to go back onto a specie-based monetary system, legal money system rather than lawful money system rather than legal tender system, yeah, you wouldn't be able to get everything for free. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to discharge everything for free, which is what you can do now. Yeah, the Treasury wouldn't be responsible for all your bills, but it wouldn't cost $20 for a motherfucking sandwich, and you wouldn't be getting $12 an hour working. It'd be the polar opposite. It'd be, 2 cents for a sandwich and you'd be making whatever, and you could buy a brand new home, work in 4 months, 5 months. You could buy a house, It's just look up the economic system. How much was medium wages? How much was a house? How much was bread? How much was milk? Look up 1913 price of everything, or 1910, or 1905, or 1895, or you can go back farther if you want, but it was pretty stable throughout the 1800s, I believe, because that's why inflation doesn't really exist. I mean, maybe in 100 years you'll get 1% of inflation, but it's almost non-existent in a Boolean based, species based monetary system, because they would have to mine all this gold and silver and then put it into circulation in order to inflate the monetary supply, which it's just that by itself is such a slow process that it basically, that's why they had to get rid of it. That was the number one thing they had to get rid of. They worked for forever. I mean, all through the 1800s and then through the 1900s, they've just been working on trying to just all the way up until 1971. All through the 1800s, all through the 1900s, all the way through 1971, they were trying to do that, and then they finally pulled it off in 1971. I mean, 1913 was a big, huge step, and then 1933, the Emergency Banking Act, Gold Abrogation Act, that was massive, and then the final killing blow of a very, very wounded animal was 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard. The final killing blow of an animal that was already pretty much barely alive. That was the end. So, but that was 100 years, over 100 years of effort they put in to try to pull all that off. So if you go through the 1800s, especially in the mid 1800s, is when they developed all of this negotiable instrument related information. So like a lot of what you see on UCC3, that was developed in the mid 1800s, like 1820 to like 1890. Right. And then you have the incorporation of the District of Columbia and the 14th Amendment. That all happened in 1871. Then they needed Supreme Court cases to interpret all of that to mean the nightmare we have today, which is the Supreme Court case, the slaughterhouse cases, which occurred in 1872. Then you have the Federal Reserve Act, which is 1911 through 1913. That was huge. Then you had 1933, which is the Emergency Banking Act and the Gold Abrogation Act. That's when they removed all the gold out of circulation. And then that's when the monetary system was no longer based off of gold and silver, but it was based off of our future production as Americans. So in 1933, you have the Emergency Banking Act, and in 1935, you have the Social Security Act, because they were married together. So they had to do that because there was no backing. And then now, what are they going to back it with? Bang, Social Security became the backing of the dollar, right? Then things kind of rolled forward for a while, and then that's when we have World War I, World War II, and then we have the UN was formed. All that kind of happened in that time period. Then 71 was the final killing blow, and then that's sort of when the country has been on a free fall basically ever since 1971. There's actually a website called WTF Happened in 1971. I'll show it to you right now.
Okay.
You ever seen this? This is a website that has nothing but graphs. It's literally just graphs. That's it. There's no other information. And just proving without a shadow of a doubt that the exact economic downfall point in American history was 1971.
Wow.
And 1971, the major thing that happened in 1971 was that final killing blow that removed gold and silver from true fiat money. 100% unmitigated fiat was born in 1971.
Okay. To go back to what we were talking about, just because I'm one of the difference between the revocation of election and the change of address form that basically has them foot the bill, which takes care of that problem, but it doesn't kill any contracts. Aren't you still legally a taxable citizen.
No, because the name that they write on everything is the sole proprietorship.
Okay.
So you're saying I'm no longer dealing with, if you guys are creating bills for this thing, all those bills go here. I'm done.
Okay.
It's sort of like it as far as I'm concerned, it's almost like an administrative process of quitting a job, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Or quitting as a trustee of a trust, essentially. I mean, they're assuming that you're going to take the responsibilities of the sole proprietorship. But the thing is, if you read that the IRM section, it says authorization for the campus to settle the account of a taxpayer using a bill of exchange. If a bill of exchange or registered bill of exchange is received from a taxpayer authorizing the campus to settle their account through Fedwire. So if you were to boil that down, what do they need from you?
Authorization.
They need authorization, precisely. So all you're doing is just giving them the authorization they need to settle the account of the taxpayer using a bill of exchange or registered bill of exchange on Fedwire.
So then how, if it is still even an issue, how are we changing our status? By every form that we fill out and we list ourselves as non-citizen? Or is that even an issue anymore?
So what happened is I started digging into a lot of Supreme Court cases and finding a lot of case law, because that's what works in the court system. So I started to do a lot of historical research through case law and stuff like that. And I found, like, the slaughterhouse cases. You can go on to I'll show it to you. You can go on to what's called Google Scholar. And you can click on case law, and you can type in anything you want. You could type in negotiable instruments, just as an example, right? And you can go to, on the left-hand side, select courts, and you can basically, you have state courts and federal courts. Let's say all you want to see is Supreme Court cases. So you're going to clear all. You're going to click on Supreme Court in the federal zone. You're going to go all the way down to the bottom, click done. Now you're only going to be shown opinions of Supreme Court cases that has the term negotiable instruments in it. And you can read one little random blurb. Sometimes it may be mentioned more than once in that particular case, but you'll see a little blurb there and you'll kind of get the basic flavor of that case, and you can kind of scroll down, right? Or you can type in the name of an actual case. For example, the one that we need right now is the slaughterhouse cases, right? There it is. This is the big dog. If you never read another case for as long as you live, you'll be fine with just this one. You'll live a great life, and you'll achieve most of your freedom-related desires for yourself and your family by simply just reading this one case. And as you can see, I'm scrolling down. It isn't the shortest thing in the world. It isn't the longest thing in the world. It's really not all that terribly difficult to read either. It's pretty fascinating. It explains how the blacks were released from slavery and they had no citizenship. And it's basically just, what the hell do we do with these people? They don't have any citizenship. So what the hell are we going to do with them? And it was, well, the only choice we have is to create an amendment to the Constitution that allows them to have this special kind of citizenship called federal U.S. citizenship. And it's basically like the whole story as to them trying to figure that out is all in this case. And you say to yourself, oh my God, Brandon, that's like the size of a book. It's not really. It's actually quite interesting. It's not super legalese. It's not the...
Yeah.
It's really... If you have any desire to understand about America, if you have any desire to understand about history, if you are even semi-motivated for the kind of freedom that you may want in your life, you will find this to be very enjoyable and very fascinating to read. I assure you. It's here, it's available, it's free, it's quick to pull up. If there are any words or ideas in here that you may not understand, just look them up as you go. And this is basically everything. The terminology used by Justice Mr. Miller when he's giving this opinion is he calls them men or free men of the union, and the word union is capitalized. So I am a man of the union, and then you've been given a sole proprietorship to operate in the commercial world. And that's basically it. That's basically the whole system, essentially, in a nutshell. And that's kind of the big shift that occurred when I did the post-course video number 2, because I realized that we aren't the U.S. national or citizen at all. It's this sole proprietorship. We're actually men of the union that basically have a U.S. citizen. We have or control a U.S. citizen, but we aren't the U.S. citizen.
So a citizen is an employee.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's a person who is an employee. The person includes corporations, trusts, estates, partnerships, associations, corporations, companies.
So a sole proprietorship is an employee.
Is a person who was born in the United States. So because that person was born in the United States, they are a U.S. citizen. A U.S. citizen is underneath the 14th Amendment.
So how does that relate to Washington, D.C.?
So Washington, D.C. is its own little world. And then the exclusive jurisdiction of Washington, D.C. is the District of Columbia and the U.S. territories, which is Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Swains Islands, and I think I'm missing one. Guam, Puerto Rico, Swains Islands, American Samoa.
Right.
So United States really is a bunch of states that are united. The problem is no one knows what those states are. Those states are the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Swains Islands, Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa. That's United States. You could say the European Union is United States. It's a bunch of United States. You could say that District of Columbia, Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, American Samoa is United Nations. They're a bunch of nations that happen to be united. You could call European Union United Nations.
So when I fill out my passport application, am I a non-citizen national?
No, I changed that with the post-course video number 2. You're the agent on behalf of a U.S. citizen. Okay. You're a man or free man of the union who has a U.S. citizen and is getting a passport for his U.S. citizen.
And so is there a place to check that box?
Yeah, it's in post-course video number 2. I explain it, and then also I rewrote the whole explanatory statement to reflect that. And in fact, it's been the smoothest thing in the world since I made this change. We had some stuff with the Department of State sometimes, and they would kind of freak out, and we had some difficulties and issues, and people were kind of freaking out, not sure how to do it. Now it's so fucking easy. Oh my God. It's so easy. I mean, it's just the difficulty and confusion associated with the passport has just gone down 97%. Seriously.
Cool. I've got to watch these videos.
And so what are the steps that you think someone should take after they watch 2.0 and they watch the 2 supplementary, what we would call 3.0 videos? What's the first step someone should take?
Well, it all depends on what you would consider to be the lowest risk. For most people, some people really enjoy jumping in at the highest risk levels as quickly as possible, which wasn't me, but there's some people who fit that category. That's fine too. Some people want to. I got a guy who one of the first things he did was sue the Department of State. in the Court of Federal Claims. It went horribly bad, and it was dismissed almost immediately. But he, fuck it, whatever. You jump out of a plane, and then you parachute on the way down, and you have some fun along the way, and people are thrilled by that, and whatever. So it all depends. It all depends on what you want to do and what you want to get involved in, and where you're. I mean, the simplest is the 8822B, and get that name, that change of address pop in, and get your passport stuff pop in, and if you want to open up a trust and start putting all your stuff over into the trust, that's pretty easy too. That's all pretty easy, almost zero risk. That makes you no longer have a tax liability. So if you're looking to not have a tax liability, people don't realize the word exempt means that you're a part of or under the laws of something, but within those laws, you don't have to do something. That's not the term that's correct for the situation. When you put the trust together and you understand the definitions of the words and this and that, you no longer have a tax liability. It's a completely different sentence. It's like if I were to say that in English from legalese, it would be foreign.
Right.
So over here, it's exempt. We don't say that. That's not. It's factually not true. That's what we're doing. We're not exempt. We are foreign. That would be the actual term that you would use. It's the legal. That'd be like the English version of it, but the legalese version is there's no tax liability.
And what kinds of things would you put in a trust? What would be in your best interests?
Well, the res of the trust is whatever the executor says the res of the trust is. The executor is the contract writer.
So it could be anything you want.
Could be. I mean, you wouldn't put other people's shit in there because then they're going to sue you. But besides that, yeah. Anything. It's sort of like when you do a name change process, or when you do a registered trademark, or a lot of things, especially if you go back and you start studying ownership from 150 years ago. What they used to do is they had to go down to the county recorder and they had to place a claim, and then they had to publish that claim in the newspaper for 30 or 60 days. And then they had to put in there, hey, if anyone has a claim against this, please contact the county recorder. And then after 30 or 60 days, if the county recorder never had any claims to that property issued to the county recorder, that's when they would finalize the title process. So that is still alive even in the statutory world. So as long you can claim anything, that's actually where adverse possession comes in. You guys ever seen that, adverse possession?
No.
If you claim an abandoned property and you go through that same process of claiming the title and putting it in the paper and all this stuff, and no one claims it, you can literally get, it's called adverse possession. It's an actual legal process that you can use to get legal title over to property that you never even paid for. And people go, oh, that's bullshit. Well, it's based off of homesteading. Homesteading was when everybody was traveling, they just saw a piece of land and they're like, fuck it, this seems good. And it's a house in the prairie. And they say, fuck it, and we're going to cut down some trees and start building here. And I claim this property, and everybody else is like, cool, have fun. And they keep walking. That's the basis of a lot of what everything started as.
Right.
So homesteading and adverse possession is essentially kind of like the same idea in law, title. A claim of title. It's the same thing. Again, we're going back to dialectic materialism. If I claim property on something and no one else claims property on something within that lawsuit, I own it.
Is this the same as squatting, though?
Well, squatting is you're not making a claim, or let's say, for example, someone is using the property and you just move in and they're just gone on vacation for a month and they're coming back. That would be squatting. Whereas if it's an actual abandoned property and you make an announcement of claim and no one rebuts that announcement of claim. Now, the thing people got to realize, it doesn't matter how emotional you get. You get pissed off and march on the streets. Doesn't make a fucking lick of difference. Adverse possession and homesteading operates the way it operates in law, and there ain't nothing you're going to fucking do that's going to change that. So you can be emotional and you can freak out and you can scream and you can You could burn buildings. You could burn the county recorder to the ground. Ain't going to make a lick of difference. Adverse possession and homesteading laws and titling laws and the way everything operates and everything I'm explaining in adverse possession will be right there tomorrow when you're rotting in a jail cell, and your behavior will not change any of that 1 millimeter. And the crazy thing about it is it's all based off of really the oldest type of law. That this is like almost like a core structural element of common law itself. So even if because the whole goal of my nation is to get rid of the 14th Amendment, which is going to basically obliterate the whole statutory world. Even after we achieve our goals, obliterating the 14th Amendment, adverse possession is still going to operate exactly the same way. So you got to realize adverse possession isn't going anywhere. I mean, America would need to literally be dissolved off the face of the earth, and every legal tenant of our entire legal system all the way from the beginning would need to be completely dissolved. America would need to be literally wiped off the face of the earth with like zero memory at all for adverse possession to be eliminated from our society.
So would you consider in my situation as like a low stakes opportunity? I have like a $600 bill for California, like state tax. So would I send
Is it attached
them,
to your name or a business?
It's attached to my name.
Does your name have a bank account?
My all caps name, yes.
I would move if you move all your cash out of that bank account. Sounds great to me. The thing is, do you have anything that is titled in that all caps name? A car, a jet ski, any other objects that has that name on it?
I have a car, but it's paid off.
Well, that makes it even worse because then they're going to take it.
Okay, so if I send them a change of address and try to field that bill back to,
you're better off opening up a corporation, just name it dumb fuck incorporated, getting credit for the corporation, use that, and then don't have anything else in that name, and then practice on that or something. Or put your car in his name, take all your money out of your bank account and put it in his, or in a trust, or in a business account, or something else, then do this.
Okay.
That'd be the smartest thing to do. Because if they type that name into their computer, they can see anything that has an attachment to that name. So they see the car, they see it's paid off. Well, shit, great, we have equity. Then they would
Gotcha.
file a civil suit, and they would say, we want to take her car as collateral. We want to possess her car as collateral to pay for the tax. They put a tax lien on the car, or on your property, or they would attach it to your bank account or whatever. So the thing is that if you're gonna, like, for example, I don't have anything in my all caps name. I closed all the bank accounts. I got rid of my driver's license. Nothing is in my all caps name except the bills. So I go around and do crazy shit all the time, all day long. Plus my name is copyrighted, so they can't even put the goddamn thing on papers, or I'll sue them. So they literally can't do a fucking thing. So people wonder, how are you so confident? That's why I'm confident. They cannot do a fucking thing. Nothing. They have no access to money. They have no access to assets. They have no access to intellectual property. They have no access to a fucking thing. Nothing. Not one penny.
So copywriting your name, in some regards, sounds like that should be the first step.
It's a long process. It's not terribly difficult. It's just like there's like 5 little tiny things you have to do with like 3 or 4 months of waiting between every single one. So it just feels like it just goes on forever. You have to do a whole thing where you put shit in the paper, and then you have to write an affidavit, and then the paper has to run. You say that you're claiming the name, and then there has to be no claims on the name for 60 days. And then you have to get an affidavit from the paper stating that it was there for 60 days. And then you submit all that, and then they have to look over everything and approve it. Then you have to do what's called a statement of use, showing that you're actually using that trademark in a commercial capacity. Now you send all that information, and now they have to look and see that there is actually usage of this trademark in commerce. There's a few other little things, and then bing, and then at the end. But the thing is, you can do trademark pending while all that's happening.
Right.
And you used your merch as proof of what you were going to use.
I was going to use my merch, and then the guy I was working with to do all this said just use a card because that's what everybody's been doing, and it's just like the easiest. He just knows that works. He's like, just use a card. Cool. He's like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Just use the card. I know it works every time. We never have any issues. Yeah, you may not have any issues using it was a fanny pack with my name in all caps on it. You might not have any issues with that. You probably won't, but the thing is that I know for a fact with the card you won't. So I said, fuck it, I'll just use the card. So we just use a card.
Like a business card?
It's a business card, yeah.
That you would have printed?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So literally, you take a business card, you make a business card, put the trademark name on it, all caps, Brandon Joe Williams. It's literally, there's a picture. They want to see your hand in the picture. You just zoom out just a teeny bit, hand in the picture, card, take a picture. I sent that in as an SOU. Boom, they approved it.
Interesting. So with all this in a new context, do we still have to get a divorce to cut the state out of our relationship?
Yeah, if you want to cut the state out, yeah. A divorce is a business. It's a business where it's you two and the state kind of all merge into one unit, basically. It's a corporate merger. That's what a business is. It's a corporate merger of 3 corporations.
But there is a way to remarry, keeping the state out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only benefit to being married really is I would never do it ever. I would, if I was offered $30 trillion, I wouldn't get married. But the only benefit to it, I think, maybe would be if you do start litigating very heavily, you both operate as the same person in law. So it's almost like she could say that she's your name and you could say that she's her name, almost like interchangeably. I'm not even sure the courts know that, but technically that's the way it works. So you could both go in and both say that you're the same person, which would be absolutely hilarious. I would get a real kick out of that. The problem with a marriage is it makes you a resident of the corporate state permanently.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Extricating the state?
Well, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can go backwards, which is the one I recommend. That's called I forget the name of it. So you would say that it was based off of a fraudulent basis and the signatures are fraudulent. I mean, you can go as far as saying, didn't even realize what I was doing and I was blackout drunk and didn't even realize the contract when I signed it or whatever. That's called there's actually a term for it. Annulment, I believe, is the term.
Oh, yeah.
So annulling the marriage certificate would be like going back and eliminating at the source. And then divorce would be moving forward and eliminating it through like a probate. Or is it a probate? Is that what it is? Or family court or whatever the hell it is, right? So you can go either way. I just think that annulment makes more sense and it's easier. But
so if you get an annulment, you don't have to get a divorce because basically you're saying this never existed. If you get a
divorce is it existed and now we're ending it. An annulment is it never existed in the first place.
Right.
So that's the termination of the business.
The contract.
Yeah, the contract. So what is the way to do it without involving the state to get married?
I mean, it's
jumping the broom.
It's just a common law. It's just you just have an affidavit and you just put it in the county recorder. I mean, it's not really. It's kind of just whatever. It's whatever you.
Gotcha.
There is no. It's just
rote way of.
It's just kind of what. Yeah, it's just kind of whatever. Yeah. Your ability to contract is infinite. So, and the thing is that there is no such thing as a forced contract. So. Again, that's everything just comes back to that. I mean, that's as low as it goes in the totem pole. So, the reason why there's rules now for you is because there's this it's all based upon this contract you guys already did called a marriage license. you're playing in this whole huge, complicated world of all this stuff you can and can't do. When you eliminate that original contract, especially with annulment, which is my favorite because it's like as if the thing never existed in the first place. You're just in space. You're just out in space. Just it's whatever. It's whatever you want. It's whatever you want to do. And people say it's no different than the idea of, can you marry a cow? I hate to say it. Can you marry a cow? Can you marry a sheep? Can you marry the same sex? Can you marry this? Can you marry that? The answer is, within the statutory system, if you want to get a marriage license, there's rules. Outside of the statutory system, there is no rules. And then that gets kind of dark real fast too, though, because then now we start talking about statutory rape, marrying a 14-year-old. I'm sorry. I know that this is probably how they put all this shit in place in the first place, because people were outcrying and saying, what the fuck are people doing marrying a goat or a 15-year-old? Fuck, you need to do something about this. And they go, oh, okay, we'll do something about it. And then bang, the statutory system was born. So we have a responsibility. You know, I wouldn't mind going back to the olden days, because the thing is that everyone has the infinite capacity to contract. If you're the father of a 14-year-old and some dude's trying to marry her, you just take him out back and he's never seen again. You know?
Yeah, but now people are marrying. Now people are marrying dolls, and they're marrying apps. And
I have a lot of mixed opinions about all this, because the thing is that we do have an infinite capacity to contract. And if you were to boil statutory rape down to its ultimate simplicity, is, does the individual have enough here to be able to understand and contract? That's really all it is. I mean, does the individual have enough awareness to contract in this way of which they're being offered, right? People don't realize, like, for example, prostitution is legal as long as it's part of shooting a porno. So if you have a prostitute and you set up a camera, it's legal.
Right.
It's just like, because it's part of the now you have a contract, it's a commercial contract. So it changes the whole thing. It's not a crime anymore. It's actually a commercial product. So the thing is that this is all kind of goofy and crazy and wild and all this stuff, because it's very, very simple. Everyone has the infinite capacity to contract, but the problem is that the whole statutory system is born out of who has the right to contract, who doesn't, who's crazy, who's too young, who's too stupid, who's too this, who's too that. A lot of that stuff created this whole, now we have conservatorships for people who are this, and now we have psych evaluations for people who are, and then now we have bar cards. Bar cards, the definition of the word client means someone who takes on a lawyer. All clients are infants or persons of unsound mind. Now we have the word infant. Now we have the word child. Now we have the word individual. Now we have the word person. Now we have the, so everything was kind of born out of this whole, what do we do? And this can't be, and somebody needs to do something about this, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas 150 years ago, it was just kind of like fucking whatever. I mean, everything was just kind of like fucking whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because the ethics of marrying a doll, for example, are, because I've done a lot of research at the college level of this, is that a doll can't give consent.
Or a cow.
So someone who is fucking a doll is basically raping something that cannot give consent.
But it's not a sentient being.
Well, if you go back to common law, there has to be damages, and then the person receiving the damages has to press charges. So if we were to go back to a pure, ultra pure common law system, what it would be was, let's take a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. That way we can keep it from upsetting people too much. Let's say you have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. Okay, that might be considered statutory at that point, right? Now what would happen is the 17-year-old would need to press charges against the 19-year-old, right? So the police officer, or in that case, it'd be a peace officer, because there wouldn't be or a sheriff or a sheriff's deputy. That would be the actual people. It would be no police. Police wouldn't exist in a world like that. So sheriff's deputy, or if it's a federal situation, it'd be a U.S. Marshal, would ask the 17-year-old, do you want to press charges? And then the 17-year-old would say, Yes. Now, at that point, 17-year-old would need to testify.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, if they press charges, you have a criminal case. If they don't, you don't. Doesn't matter if you're 15. Doesn't matter if you're 17. Doesn't matter. Do you want to press charges? Yes or no? Yes, I do. Be at court at this time. You're going to testify, and that's it. That's how it would go down, and that'd be the end of the story. And it wouldn't be United States versus John Doe, or people of state of California, which is just a corporation, versus
Right.
John Doe. It would be Jane Doe versus John Doe.
Right. So a doll is not going to be able to testify.
A doll
or
can't press charges. An animal can't press charges. So in that system, there would be no legal repercussions. It'd be physically impossible in a common law system,
Right.
which is probably part of the reason why the statutory system was born, because people wanted to have control over the activities of other people above and beyond what common law and equity offered.
Right.
And then obviously
Makes
throughout
sense.
100 years of this, it's gotten worse and worse and darker, and then now it's really out of control. And we're at the point now where there's a lot of people who are standing up, and they're very upset about how this whole thing has gotten to this point. But people need to realize that if you want to start turning back time on this, there are going to be some pretty serious conversations that are going to need to take place, such as some of the examples that I've already described, which I won't again, because I know people get very upset about that. And the thing is that if there is some truth in the fact that if there was a situation where, you were doing some stuff and daddy didn't like it, and daddy takes you out back and works you over the 2x4, that's what things were 150 years ago. Or you just disappear and nobody ever sees you again. And I don't know what happened to Joe. Joe was getting a bit handsy, and dad didn't like it, and that was the end of it. And, technically someone's got to press charges against the dad for him to get prosecuted, but the guy's gone. And then if he did, let's say mom comes along and says, I haven't seen my son, and she presses charges against the dad because she thinks the dad buried the guy alive, which he did because he touched his daughter. Now she has the burden of evidence because he's presumed innocent until proven guilty. She has to now produce the evidence to prosecute him, which is going to be tough. So people get away with murder. But then you got to think to yourself, well, is that justified? The guy had his hands all over his daughter, and it's disgusting. And it's no more complicated than what we have now. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, the statutory system it'd be the same super complicated conversation as it would be back then. At least back then, we'd be talking about the actual fucking case. Nowadays, in the statutory system, all we're talking about is procedure and, did he serve? Did he, as per service of process, he didn't put it in an envelope, and they fucking, they have all these little things. And you've heard about this losing on a technicality. That's a lot of what, and I'll tell you right now, I've been in the courts for a year. I almost every single filing into every single case is almost completely procedure based. And I think most people find that really disgusting. It's like it's so hard in the courts to just talk about the actual problem. The actual problem is this dude's fucking a doll. It takes 8 months of how was the papers delivered? Who did you deliver it to? The affidavit date is incorrect. Page 2 doesn't have a page number on it. It needs to be refiled. I'm telling you, I swear to God, you can look through all my shit. That's what it is. It's all procedure based. So one of the big benefits of going back to a common law system is, it would be kind of the same complications, but at least we'd be talking about the actual problem and not procedure all day long.
Right. Well, and I think what the current system is relying on is people's laziness and people not wanting to go through any type of litigation.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of it's all Marxism, it's all procedure, it's all a snake fuckers in suits trying to fucking mix your words and redefine everything and fuck you. It's awful. It's an awful experience. And they want to make it awful on purpose to try to deter you from doing it. But the thing is that you can, perception is reality. You can look at it any way you want, because the thing is that you can use it to grow too. It's the ultimate, in my opinion, it's the ultimate growth mechanism. It's like going to, a 6-month boot camp or something. I don't know. It's you don't go to a 6-month boot camp because you want to drink martinis on the beach, but people pay to go to these cool boot camps because they want to grow and they want to, so adversity and difficulty isn't necessarily always the worst thing. It just comes down to perception. If you want to become really good at negotiation and sales and writing and influencing people through words, and if you want to stand up for what you believe in and grow your integrity and grow what you believe and grow your knowledge and grow your certainty and grow your writing skills and grow your sales skills and grow your grammar skills and your vocabulary, and there's so many things that just by going through the process you're going to be honing in on these skills. I mean, I haven't really gotten a whole lot of traction in the courts all year long. It's been but the learning process has been unbelievable in every way, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Everything has changed. So I think I call it a rite of passage for men specifically, because men don't have a rite of passage in the West. We just kind of grow up and then we're teenagers and then we're God knows what. Women have their period, and then that's kind of like the legal, or not legal, but like biological transition from being a girl into being a woman. Men don't have that, right? Like in the certain countries you have this whole thing, and a lot of tribal Indian tribes and stuff like that, you have an actual rite of passage where the guy has to go out, kill animals, survive in the forest on his own for 3 days. He comes back and then that's it. Now there's a celebration and there's a whole night where there's a fire and there's the dancing and there's the bongos and that's it, So I look at litigation as a rite of passage for men. And I understand why most women don't really want to get involved in it, but I think for men, it's sort of an optional rite of passage. I think all men should go through some kind of intense combat related, whether it's boxing, fighting, MMA, jiu-jitsu, litigation. I think it's important. I think all men in kind of like their teenage years should go through some kind of military, martial art, combat, something as sort of like a rite of passage from being a boy into being a man. And I think litigation is a great option.
I think this is really about teaching a way away from learned helplessness.
Yeah.
Because what our society is teaching people is that you are a slave, and it's really reinforcing that. And it's very easy to get depressed in that state. And you see a huge uptick in depression in young men. And I think it's exactly what you're saying, because they're not being tested. And where military is the answer for some men and MMA is the answer for some men, there's some men who are intellectual who wouldn't necessarily survive in those circumstances. And this is a great place to kind of break that mesmerism of learned helplessness, where you realize, wait, I do have power.
100%. I really, I believe that I turned into a man from a boy in 2024 at 38 years old.
And we watched it happen.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
You've grown so much since the last time I've seen you.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. So it's
well, we've rounded 2 hours, Brandon, and I want to be very cognizant of your time. Yes. And what a joy it is to speak to you. And please say you'll come back.
Of course, always. Thank you so much. Okay. There's always, a few months go by and it's a whole new world. It's like Aladdin. You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And where can people find you and find your work?
The cleanest website in the world. onestupidfuck.com.
Look for the pulsating pickle.
Yeah, look for the pickle. Look for the pickle man, you know?
I feel so grateful that you were okay and that you have weathered the California storm of these fires. And I really look forward to continuing on 2.0 and all the work that you are continuing to do.
Yeah.
And I really believe in the fact that you are a freedom fighter and that you're serious about what you're doing and that you will do this to the bitter end. So I thank you because it is inspiring a lot of people to do the same thing. And a lot of people are failing, but fail upwards.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's an important aspect of this.
That's learning.
Failure, it's funny, the subject of failure is pretty fascinating because a lot of the stuff, there is no such thing as failure, such as
Mhm.
the passport, such as opening
Mhm.
up a trust and moving your bank accounts over, protecting your assets, such as changing the way that you operate commercially. There's so many things that are just zero risk. You can't lose. Maybe you need to do it a couple times because you fucked up the paperwork.
Yeah.
But then we start going up into like a sort of like a tier 2, which is like getting rid of your driver's license. And then now you get pulled over. And then like now there's more risk involved. And then to me, tier 3 is like a lot of the negotiable instruments, litigation. I feel like litigation doesn't even come into play until that tier 3 because there's so
Mhm.
many tier 1 administrative type things that you can do that there is no such thing as failure. There might be like, hey, you screwed this up a little bit, you just need to redo it, but it's not like it's not like you failed. It's not like some horrible thing happened or you lost a bunch of money or you're kind of out on something or there's risk. So failure is really only comes into play as you get into these second and third tiers. So, you know, and the thing is that as we move forward on a lot of this litigation and as things kind of start to break, it's going to become easier and easier and easier for people to pull off a lot of the negotiable instruments and performance type stuff and all that, because then now it becomes precedent in the courts. Like I have a case right now in the, I think I'm in the ninth district. I forget, Ninth Circuit. I have a case right now with Amex, and if this appeals court sees things my way and they say some stuff, and then bang, California, I forget what else is in my circuit, but all of California now has this precedent of negotiable instruments associated with credit card accounts and bills of exchange and stuff, and then so you know it's just it took us 150 years to lose everything, and then I mean, it's only going to take us a few years to get it all back. So it just shows you the difference between lies and truth. You know, it takes 150 years of lies to break everything down. It only takes a few years of truth to fix it all up again. So it's really not overwhelming when you think of it that way. It's actually very motivating. And I try all the time to try to give people more of an optimistic or motivating view rather than because everyone's pretty overwhelmed. I think really the basic of what's happening with everybody in this information is they're coming up and out of like a complete overwhelmed apathy. Because I had to come up and out of that too. I'm no different, you know? So we're just, what we're doing is every day we're learning how do you bring people up and out of that overwhelmed apathy faster, better, more fun, simpler, easier. It's really all we're trying to do, right? And we are getting pretty good at it. And then now there's like 80 million people teaching this information. There's new people every day, it seems like. So, and then, you know, the Trump thing, Trump got inaugurated today. He has a lot of things he wants to do. I think we'll see. I'm kind of a we'll see kind of a person on a lot of this political stuff, right? But there's just a lot of, I think the biggest thing that's happening right now, and it's a huge, huge change, is a lot of people are talking about a lot of shit that has not been talked about for over 100 years. Yeah, so
absolutely.
That to me, just everybody's starting to talk and ask questions. To me, that's the biggest thing. We just need to work together and just get other people to start thinking and being like, I wonder, and asking questions. And everybody starts asking questions, and that's it. That's the beginning of a tsunami that literally just can't be stopped, in my opinion. So
absolutely,
I love it.
Right on.
And the velvet helps too.
Yes, of course.
The velvet.
He wore a beautiful velvet long coat. Yeah, it's great.
I had all these different costumes in the UCC 3 series. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's funny.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah, those sound great. Thank you so much, man, for coming in and coming in. I don't know, coming into our lives. And let's do it again, and not so far in the future next time.
Beautiful guys. Thank you so much.
Yes. Take care, Brandon.
Bye-bye.
Hey, we're back.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
What did you think of that, my dear?
That was awesome. Very awesome. I guess the only thing I'm always curious about that I didn't cover was people who have, I guess, bad lawyers or bad tax accountants, and how do these famous people end up in these situations where they owe all this money? Is it because they're not applying the stuff? Like, it seems like the copywriting of your name would be kind of an obvious thing to do if you were a public facing figure, like that you would have someone advising you to do that. So I find that interesting that these folks are still getting in trouble. Excuse me.
What pretty sounding gas you have, my dear. Okay.
Unsee.
What was I going to say? You're assuming that these people are hip to this stuff. I think this stuff is only just now starting to surface in a big way, and being disseminated in such a vast manner where I'm sure people will eventually catch on to that. And who knows, maybe those situations are just held up as examples and it's not really all as dire as they say that it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that there was a law professor at KU that was teaching Black's Law. And it was interesting that Brandon said that these lawyers do learn Black's Law. Mm-hmm. And so I guess my next thought about that is, okay, so they learn Black's Law, but then what they learn to do is how to fuck people over.
I think you're talking about natural law. Black's Law is basically just a dictionary.
Right, but Black's Law is the precedent. It's basically what he's drawing from that explains what common law is and how those things are applied.
Yeah, I think, he's using that in an etymological sense, I think. He's getting his definitions from there.
But he's also using that as precedent setting. Like, this is why this word means this, because in these cases, this is how that word was being used.
Yeah, but if you are, I'm talking way out of my wheelhouse here, but I'm assuming if you are a lawyer and you're supposed to be defending somebody in a case, if you don't look up the case law, meaning that book is just a tool there for you to use. If you don't use the tool, then it's not going to have the same result as if you did use the tool. So Black's Law Dictionary would be considered a tool that maybe you refer to it and you do use it the way that Brandon does, or maybe you don't refer to it at all and you end up falling through the cracks because you don't question a particular way that something is used in a particular context.
I think what he's saying is that it's in Marxist system and they know that, and so they're not trying to draw outside of those lines. They're saying, okay, this is what we're trying to do. We're basically trying to fuck people over, and so we are going to keep using this Marxist system to fuck people over, as opposed to trying to break the system and trying to work outside of the confines of that system.
Well, it works because, especially in a context like America, because it's based on ignorance. We are kept in a cage not by any cage master, but by our own ignorance of the fact that we know we have the key to the cage. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think it was Brandon Sibley who said, he may have even said it on our show, that the average 8-year-old had a better education than a full-grown adult right now.
You mean maybe he was the one that brought up the test that Kansas kids had to take at a particular point, maybe in the late 1800s or early 1900s.
And that an 8-year-old was basically doing the type of work that a wizened lawyer would be doing today, that they just had a better education. So I think that's part of the dumbing down of this country and people in this country. Is the intention is to basically enslave us. It's not really about creating freedom, it's about taking freedom away.
Well, again, and it's by ignorance too. Particularly in the participation trophy version of school that we have now, where everybody pretty much is going to pass for the most part, because people don't have to read to get to advance in their grades anymore. Like, a lot of people are allowed to fall through the cracks because they may belong to a particular group of people or a particular
socioeconomic.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, exactly. And that's not holding anybody. That's like having no standards whatsoever, which is even worse than just the negligence of not having a good structure of education to provide for people. You're not even taking advantage of that. You're just saying, you know what, move along. You don't need any of this stuff because I don't want to be considered a racist or considered a classist or whatever the fuck. It's I think that effect is speeding up even more in some sectors. I think sometimes in some other sectors it's not doing that at all. I don't really see a whole lot of that at the kids' school. It seems like they're getting a fairly decent education as far as public education is concerned. Fairly decent.
I don't know. I don't know enough about their homework to know kind of where it's being steered and what.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there are kids that are being more influenced by social media than their education that they're getting from a textbook or from any lessons that they are being assigned. I do find it a little alarming and disturbing that in a lot of classes, the way that the curriculum is designed is like, let's watch this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really about actual interactive learning. It's you watch, like in government, okay, we're going to watch Saving Private Ryan, and then you're going to fill out this form on Google Docs, and that's going to be your lesson. Well, who made Saving Private Ryan? Exactly. It's like, how was that film skewed to make, it was made by someone who is highly suspect.
Yeah.
So I think that says a lot about the education that they're getting. It's not great. It's just fill in this form and we'll call it a day and say you learned something.
Yeah. I think if anything, what lacks in it is shown by their lack of enthusiasm, which they didn't have when they were going to a Waldorf school. I mean, which they did have when they were going to a Waldorf school. They're not enthused about learning a few classes here and there because they really like the subject matter, but the way a lot of it is taught, I think, is so sort of dead and sterile that,
yeah.
I mean, math was interesting in a Waldorf school because they gave you lots of different ways to get to the same result.
Yeah.
Whereas there's, you have to do it by rote.
I think the difference now in a public school is more the social dynamic than it is education or curriculum. It's having more of a broader social circle, and I think that's way more interesting than the academics. And that may be okay. I don't really know ultimately. But I do agree with him that there has to be some really clear delineating rite of passage for not only young men, but for humans.
For sure.
And I think I understand what he's saying. Like, okay, men should join the military or they should join some sport that challenges them. But not everyone has that mindset or the physicality to be in that realm. And as I was thinking that, I was thinking of Mark Zuckerberg, who did really well academically, and then got to a point in his life where he did turn inward and look at his physical state. And he is an MMA fighter, and is very, very physically active. So I think everyone has the capacity to do that.
Of course.
We just live in a world where we nerf our world, and we're like, no, you don't have to run, or no, you don't have to be physical. And I feel like that's unfortunate, because I feel like the kids do need to be challenged in that way. And I feel like we let them off too easily with that, and we don't really challenge them physically, where I think it would really help them.
The first step in that would be challenging ourselves physically. I think if we did it as a group, or at least set the example, then that would be more of a legitimate strategy.
But I do, and I did, and I was going to the gym every single day and exercising every single day. And so I feel like I was, but that definitely comes from a male energy. And I think you're right. I think that is something that's a thing that you could take on, that you could be like, okay, let's go to the gym.
Yes. Our youngest is ready to go. We're just waiting for that nudge to go to the right trainer. Remember that whole conversation, which doesn't need to happen right now. But yes.
Yeah. But our oldest son also would, I think he would benefit from that kind of discipline, because he's not having some kind of a rite of passage other than graduating from high school. So I agree with what he's saying. Like, it's necessary for them to go through some experience. And that was what was so wonderful about Waldorf, is that Waldorf does have these very clear delineating lines. Every 7 years, you're going to this next phase.
And they did have a mini vision quest, sort of like, just several hours, but not 3 days. But something that's better than nothing at all.
Yeah. So, and I guess my perspective on a non-physical version of a rite of passage is what he's saying, which is put yourself in this environment where you're not afraid to go to court, where you're not afraid to litigate. And I think that's kind of a laziness of like, I don't want to deal with this, because they make this situation so gross. Like, you don't want to be there, and you don't want to have to go through that. But I see the benefit of not being fearful of that.
For sure. And I think it would benefit me, at least, to have a very clear and concise, at least for confidence building, a clear and concise path of education to get to that point. Now it's like, and it's not just Brandon that does this, but Lovett and other people, Chris Hauser, they throw out a lot of things. And I will say that, I mean, in Brandon's defense, he does give you a bunch of things to work with, but not, and I shouldn't say this because I haven't completed 2.0 and I haven't completed the post-course videos, but I have not found it to be set up in a way like step 1, step 2, step 3. Like, I like how you asked that question towards the end, because that's what I don't need in that case. In any situation where I don't feel competence, I need some structure, at least to get the ball rolling until I get enough confidence to go my own direction.
Yeah, I think studying the UCC flowchart is a great place, because it does break all of this down in a very clear, concise manner.
Nice.
I just respect him so much, because he has done all this fucking legwork.
Oh my God.
And he's taken on something. That's why I wanted to kind of dip into the Scientology education aspect, because this is really about etymology. It's about the study of words and the mesmerism of words and language, and how language has a magical capacity and quality to it. And if we allow someone else to be the magician and store these words up, it's easy to get confused and be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
And when we were in a court situation and we were with a lawyer that I assumed knew what the fuck he was talking about, there were things that I wanted to stand up and say, like, hey, wait, ... But I wasn't really in a position to do that. And the lawyer didn't fucking do it.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, my God, we have to be able to defend ourselves. We can't rely on these fuckers. Even if they're making $6,000 an hour, they don't have your best interest at heart because they're not you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think to be able to defend yourself is a good place to be, but I feel very, very far from that. And I honestly don't like everything ending in litigation. I feel like there's better things to do in life than to be in court all the time. But one of the things I wanted to ask him, but it never really came up organically, or we moved on to something else before I got a chance to, is what does it look like to sue somebody? What is involved in that? Like, does that mean going to a courtroom 5 days a week and like hammering it out for hours and hours? Is it something that you tell your lawyer to go do and they, I just don't know what that involves. I have an idea. I have seen courtroom dramas, but I don't have any idea what it actually looks like.
I think you file a lawsuit and then that person responds or they don't respond. And a court case, I think you file it with the county clerk or the courthouse, and then they give you a court date and you go to that court date. Either the person shows up or they don't show up. Many cases are dismissed because that other person doesn't show up. I think a lot of it is very cut and dry. I think it gets more complicated when you're talking about banks and credit cards, because those people do have attorneys and they do show up, and these people know what the fuck they're saying and doing, and it that can get dragged out. So I think being equipped with the information is so valuable and so necessary before you go step anywhere near a litigation.
Well, I like, and all of this word magic and learning about all these hoops and stuff like that is very important too. But then I think of somebody who we need to have on again too, Cal Washington, who has gotten, and I've never heard Brandon say this, or really anybody in this realm say this, besides Cal, about getting a judge to the point of getting them to literally run out of the courtroom. Like,
yeah, and what that means.
Yeah, exactly.
When they get up and leave the courtroom.
Like, they can ask you something 3 times, or you present something to them 3 times. It's like, that's a whole different level of all this stuff that we're talking about. There's so many levels to so many. I get overwhelmed by it sometimes.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but we've got some stuff to chew on here, which is fantastic. That form, that's ingenious. Putting the tab, like directing them to. Yeah, that's amazing. The 8822B, but I guess that's on the website now too.
Yeah. Yes. All right, guys.
Yes,
we're out.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. I hope that you got something positive off of this. Go to our fantastic new website, themeltpodcast.net, and you will see how to get a hold of us, me, whatever. All of our episodes are there. You can leave comments, start conversations in the comments, rate us there, leave reviews. There's so much stuff you can do there that you couldn't do in the old website. So thank you so much. And you can be reached where? hunter-muse@protonmail.com. And please suggest guests. A lot of our best guests come from suggestions from other people that put people on our radar that we weren't aware of. So.
That's right. And just as a side note, R.I.P. David Lynch.
R.I.P. David Lynch.
We love you.
Very, very much.
Safe travels on your journey.
Yeah, I'm sure he's having a blast wherever he's at. I hope they have a smoking room in heaven. But
he's in the unified field.
For sure. Absolutely.
Chilling.
Yes. We'll have to ask Robert Temple more about that the next time we have him on.
Exactly. All right, guys.
All right.
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
No way. I love you too. We'll say that. Ta-ta.